Have you ever noticed that some people never really lose? They don't crumble after failure. They don't spiral when plans fall apart. They don't obsess over proving themselves right. Instead, they pause. They reflect. They adjust. If you're an INFJ, or you love someone who is, you've probably seen this pattern. Because INFJs don't lose. They either win, or they learn. And today, we're going deep into the INFJ personality type, the rarest Myers-Briggs type, to understand why setbacks don't define them, why rejection doesn't destroy them, and how their quiet resilience turns every loss into long-term power. Let's explore the INFJ mindset, emotional intelligence, personal growth psychology, and why the advocate personality quietly transforms pain into wisdom. The INFJ, often called the advocate in the Myers-Briggs type indicator framework, is driven by intuition, empathy, and a powerful internal vision. They lead with introverted intuition, and they support it with extrovert feeling, FE. In simple terms, they see patterns others miss, and they feel what others hide. This combination creates something extraordinary. An INFJ doesn't experience life as a series of wins and losses. They experience it as a journey of meaning. And when meaning matters more than ego, losing becomes impossible. INFJs and the redefinition of failure. Most personality types are conditioned to measure success externally. Status, money, recognition, approval, competition. These are the metrics society rewards. These are the scoreboards people are taught to watch. But the INFJ personality type doesn't live by society's scoreboard. They live by an internal compass. For the INFJ, success is deeply psychological and spiritual. It's about growth, alignment, integrity, wisdom, impact. This is one of the most misunderstood INFJ traits. From the outside, it may look like they don't care enough about traditional achievement. But that's not true. They care deeply, just not about hollow victories. An INFJ can achieve status and still feel empty if it violates their values. They can earn money and still feel lost if it lacks meaning. They can receive praise and still feel disconnected if it isn't aligned with who they truly are. Because for INFJs, alignment is everything. And this is where their redefinition of failure begins. When something doesn't work out, a relationship, a career move, a creative project, the INFJ doesn't immediately ask, "Did I fail?" Instead, their mind shifts inward. What did this reveal? What pattern is emerging? What is life trying to show me? Where did I betray myself? What part of me needs to grow? This is the INFJ growth mindset in its purest form. In psychology, this is called adaptive resilience, the ability to transform adversity into development rather than identity collapse. But INFJs don't use clinical language for it. To them, this process is survival. Many INFJs grow up feeling different, misunderstood, out of place. That early experience forces them to develop deep introspection and emotional processing skills. So by adulthood, setbacks don't feel like identity threats. They feel like data. And when you treat pain as data instead of destiny, you become impossible to defeat. Failure becomes feedback. Rejection becomes redirection. And disappointment becomes refinement. This is why INFJs don't lose in the traditional sense. They evolve. Why INFJs don't break easily. From the outside, INFJs look soft, gentle, quiet, sensitive, emotionally expressive. And in a world that glorifies hardness, this softness is often mistaken for fragility. But sensitivity is not weakness. Sensitivity is awareness. And awareness is power. The INFJ personality type possesses heightened emotional perception. They pick up on subtle shifts in tone, posture, and energy. They notice what others overlook. This makes them vulnerable, yes. But it also makes them adaptive. When disappointment strikes, INFJs don't explode. They withdraw. Not to escape, but to process. This retreat into solitude is one of the most powerful INFJ coping mechanisms. It's not avoidance. It's integration. Inside that quiet space, they begin their analysis. They ask, what went wrong? What did I ignore? What pattern repeated itself? What boundary did I fail to enforce? What intuition did I silence because I wanted to believe differently? This level of internal processing is rare. Many people distract themselves from pain through noise, busyness, rebound relationships, impulsive decisions. But the INFJ sits with it. They feel it. They dissect it. They absorb the lesson until it becomes part of their framework for the future. And here's the key. Once an INFJ integrates a lesson, it is rarely repeated. This is why INFJs appear stronger after setbacks. It's not that they didn't suffer. It's that they metabolized the suffering. Pain, for the INFJ, is compost. And compost grows gardens. The INFJ growth mindset in action. One of the most searched topics in the world of Myers-Briggs personality types is this. Why do INFJs seem so strong after heartbreak? The answer is simple, but profound. They don't waste pain. Heartbreak hits INFJs deeply. In INFJ relationships, they invest emotionally, intuitively, and spiritually. They don't love casually. So when something ends, it shakes their internal world. But instead of hardening into cynicism, they turn inward. Heartbreak doesn't just hurt them. It reveals them. It reveals where they overgave, where they ignored red flags, where they romanticized potential, where they confused intensity with compatibility, where they sacrificed alignment for connection. And this clarity becomes power. Instead of becoming bitter, the INFJ becomes refined, clearer about what they deserve, clearer about what they will no longer tolerate, clearer about what emotional depth actually means. They begin to understand that chemistry is not the same as compatibility, that empathy is not the same as responsibility, that loving someone does not mean saving them. They refine their standards. They strengthen their boundaries. They recalibrate their vision of partnership. So the next time love enters their life, it meets a wiser version of them. And that's why INFJs don't repeat the same relationship mistakes endlessly. They may take longer to trust again. They may become more selective. But that selectivity is earned wisdom. That's not losing. That's leveling up. INFJs and emotional intelligence. One of the most defining INFJ strengths is emotional intelligence. They understand subtext, energy shifts, micro-expressions, unspoken tension, hidden motives, emotional undercurrents. In group settings, they can sense discomfort before it becomes visible. In relationships, they can feel distance before it's verbalized. In conversations, they often know what someone is struggling with before that person has words for it. This makes INFJs powerful connectors. But here's the hidden cost. High emotional intelligence often turns into high emotional responsibility. INFJs can easily fall into the role of the therapist friend, the emotional mediator, the fixer, the rescuer, the silent stabilizer. They sense others' pain and instinctively want to alleviate it. But sometimes, they absorb what was never theirs to carry. And this is where burnout happens. INFJ burnout is not dramatic. It's quiet. It looks like withdrawal, exhaustion, emotional numbness, sudden distance. But here's what makes INFJs resilient. Even burnout becomes a teacher. An INFJ who has burned out once begins to understand. Not every emotion in the room is mine. Not every problem requires my intervention. Not every wounded person wants to heal. Not every crisis deserves my energy. And slowly, they learn the sacred art of saying no, protecting solitude, prioritizing mental health, valuing their own needs without guilt. This evolution transforms them. Older, mature INFJs often appear calmer, more selective, almost untouchable. But it's not coldness. It's emotional mastery. They've already paid the price of overextending themselves. Now they choose carefully. They've learned that protecting their peace is not selfish. It's necessary. The INFJ mindset, long-term vision over short-term ego. Here's something crucial about the INFJ mindset. They think in decades. Their dominant function, introverted intuition, is future-oriented. It constantly scans for long-term consequences, patterns, and trajectories. While others focus on immediate validation, INFJs are quietly asking, will this matter in 5 years? Does this align with my purpose? Is this person aligned with my values? Where is this path leading me? This long-term intuitive vision changes everything. Temporary embarrassment doesn't scare them. Short-term loss doesn't destabilize them. Because they're not playing a short game. If a job doesn't align with their purpose, they may endure it temporarily, but they are already planning their exit. If a friendship drains their energy, they don't explode. They quietly withdraw and reallocate emotional resources. If a path feels wrong, they pivot, even if it means starting over. Because the INFJ isn't trying to win arguments. They're trying to win at life. And winning at life, for an INFJ, means living authentically, protecting integrity, pursuing meaningful work, cultivating deep relationships, leaving a quiet but lasting impact. That's a different metric entirely. When your goal is alignment instead of applause, setbacks become minor detours. When your focus is legacy instead of ego, criticism becomes background noise. When your compass is internal, you cannot be permanently thrown off course. This is why INFJs don't lose. They win when alignment is achieved. Or they learn when alignment is corrected. Either way, they move closer to their truest self. And that is the kind of success no one can take away. The power of introverted intuition, NI. At the core of the INFJ personality type lies something almost mystical. Introverted intuition, often abbreviated as NI. NI is future-oriented pattern recognition. It is the quiet mental process that connects dots long before the picture is visible to others. It's why INFJs often say, "I had a feeling." And more often than not, they're right. Introverted intuition doesn't operate loudly. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It gathers fragments. A tone shift. A subtle inconsistency. A change in energy. A repeated behavioral pattern. A long-term trajectory others overlook. And it synthesizes them into a single inner knowing. Not logic in the traditional sense, but insight. This is why when something collapses, a relationship, a friendship, a business decision, INFJs rarely say, "I never saw this coming." More often, they sit quietly and admit, "I ignored my intuition." And that realization is powerful, because the lesson isn't, "I failed." The lesson is, "Next time, I'll trust myself sooner." This subtle shift is everything. Every time an INFJ overrides their intuition to maintain harmony, to give someone the benefit of the doubt, to avoid conflict, and later sees the consequence, their internal trust recalibrates. They learn. They refine. They strengthen their relationship with themselves. Over time, this builds something incredibly rare: self-trust. And once an INFJ deeply trusts their intuition, manipulation becomes nearly impossible. Guilt tactics lose power. Love bombing becomes transparent. Empty promises sound hollow. Performative charm feels forced. Because the INFJ is no longer looking outward for validation. They're listening inward for truth. Introverted intuition becomes their internal compass. And once that compass is calibrated, they may still experience pain, but they rarely experience confusion. INFJs and silent strength. The world celebrates loud confidence. The bold speaker. The dominant personality. The visible leader. The outspoken competitor. But INFJ's strength is different. It is silent. And because it is silent, it is often underestimated. INFJ's strength looks like walking away without drama, forgiving without forgetting, starting over without announcing it, growing without boasting. They do not need to declare their transformation. They embody it. An INFJ rarely fights for attention, but they will fight quietly for integrity. They won't argue endlessly to prove a point, but they will adjust their life if something violates their values. They don't need applause. They need alignment. Alignment between their actions and their beliefs. Alignment between their relationships and their standards. Alignment between their career and their purpose. And alignment makes them unstoppable. Because when someone acts from alignment rather than ego, they don't burn out trying to impress. They don't chase approval. They don't crumble under criticism. Their foundation is internal. Silent strength is not dramatic. It is durable. And durability is far more powerful than noise. Why INFJs sometimes appear detached. One of the most misunderstood INFJ traits is emotional distance. After enough life experience, heartbreak, Betrayal, burnout, disappointment. INFJs develop stronger emotional boundaries. From the outside, this can look like detachment. But it's not coldness. It's clarity. You see, early in life, many INFJs overextend. They overgive. They overexplain. They overempathize. They overinvest. Because their emotional intelligence is high, they often assume others operate from the same depth. Eventually, experience teaches them otherwise. And once they understand that not everyone values depth, loyalty, or emotional accountability the same way, they adjust. They realize, not everyone is meant to stay. Not every connection is meant to last. Not every misunderstanding is meant to be corrected. Not every battle is meant to be fought. So they conserve energy. They choose wisely. They invest intentionally. They begin asking, is this reciprocal? Is this aligned? Is this healthy long-term? Is this draining my peace? And if the answer is no, they quietly step back. This isn't emotional withdrawal. It's emotional discipline. They are not losing warmth. They are gaining wisdom. And wisdom knows that access to your inner world should be earned, not assumed. INFJs in career and purpose. When discussing INFJ career paths, one theme consistently emerges in personality psychology, meaning, INFJs thrive in roles aligned with purpose and human impact. You'll often find them in counseling, writing, teaching, creative direction, humanitarian work, strategy and vision roles, psychology and personal development fields. They are natural big-picture thinkers. They see systems. They understand people. They connect ideas across time. But here's the challenge. If INFJs stay too long in environments that feel soulless, overly corporate, purely profit-driven, emotionally disconnected, they begin to feel drained. Not physically at first. Existentially, they may appear functional. But internally, they feel misaligned. However, even the wrong career becomes a teacher. It teaches them what they are not, what they cannot tolerate long-term, what environment nourishes them, what leadership style they respect, what kind of impact feels meaningful. This is why INFJ career pivots are often precise. They don't change direction impulsively. They change direction reflectively. After deep analysis. After pattern recognition. After internal confirmation. So when they pivot with intention. Every wrong turn becomes a compass adjustment. And over time, their career path may look non-linear to outsiders. But to the INFJ, it makes perfect sense. It's a process of alignment refinement. They are not climbing a ladder. They are building a life. The INFJ door slam, not revenge, resolution. The INFJ door slam. It's become almost legendary in Myers-Briggs discussions. But it's deeply misunderstood. The INFJ door slam is not impulsive. It is not dramatic. It is not revenge-driven. It is resolution. By the time an INFJ cuts someone off completely, a long internal process has already occurred. Usually, there have been repeated boundary violations, emotional manipulation, broken trust, disrespect of core values, dismissal of their emotional reality. The INFJ gives chances. They communicate gently. They try to understand. They rationalize. They empathize. But once they reach the point of clarity that the pattern will not change, something shifts. And when it shifts, it is final. They don't door slam because they lost. They door slam because they learned. They learned that empathy without boundaries leads to self-betrayal. They learned that access to their inner world is sacred. They learned that protecting peace is more important than preserving appearances. And once that lesson integrates, they don't reopen the door easily. Not from pride, but from wisdom. INFJs and inner peace. As INFJs mature, something beautiful happens. Their focus shifts. In younger years, many INFJs try to prove themselves. Prove their intelligence. Prove their kindness. Prove their value. Prove their intentions. But over time, they realize something freeing. Not everyone is meant to understand them. And that's okay. So they stop arguing with people committed to misunderstanding them. They stop chasing validation from emotionally unavailable sources. They stop explaining themselves endlessly to those who aren't listening. They begin choosing peace over ego. And once an INFJ chooses peace over ego, there is no real way to defeat them. You can inconvenience them. You can disappoint them. You can misunderstand them. But you cannot break someone who grows from everything. Because every setback becomes refinement. Every criticism becomes feedback. Every ending becomes redirection. Inner peace becomes their baseline, not their reward. And that is powerful. INFJs and personal development. Search terms like INFJ personality explained, INFJ strengths and weaknesses, INFJ relationships, INFJ career path, INFJ emotional depth, INFJ growth mindset. And you'll find one common theme: depth. The INFJ personality type is depth-oriented in a surface-oriented world. They crave meaningful conversation over small talk, purpose over popularity, authenticity over aesthetics, growth over comfort. This makes life challenging at times, but it also makes life rich. Because depth doesn't collapse easily. It adapts. It transforms. It evolves. When shallow systems fail, depth endures. When trends change, depth remains. When noise fades, depth still speaks. And that is why INFJs don't lose. They grow. They refine. They recalibrate. They realign. Again and again. Until their outer world begins to reflect their inner truth. And that is the quiet power of the INFJ mindset. The ultimate truth. INFJs transmute pain. There's something almost invisible happening inside the INFJ personality type. A quiet alchemy. While others react to pain, INFJs process it. While others numb it, INFJs study it. While others try to outrun it, INFJs sit with it long enough to understand it. And slowly, pain transforms. It becomes insight. An INFJ rarely goes through suffering without asking, what is this revealing about me? What is this teaching me about others? What pattern is emerging? What blind spot has been exposed? Pain becomes data. And data becomes wisdom. That heartbreak, it sharpens their understanding of compatibility. That betrayal, it strengthens their boundaries. That failure, it refines their strategy. That rejection, it redirects their path. Over time, this internal processing creates emotional depth that cannot be faked. Pain becomes empathy. Because INFJs remember how it felt. They remember confusion. They remember loneliness. They remember being misunderstood. So when someone else is struggling, they don't offer surface-level advice. They offer presence. And that presence heals. Pain becomes strategy. INFJs are pattern-oriented thinkers. Every mistake adds to their internal map of human behavior. They begin recognizing red flags earlier. They begin sensing misalignment sooner. They become strategic without becoming cynical. Pain becomes creativity. Many INFJs channel emotional intensity into writing, art, music, or visionary thinking. What once overwhelmed them becomes expression. What once hurt them becomes something beautiful and useful. Pain becomes boundaries. Each lesson reinforces the understanding that empathy without limits leads to self-erasure. And so they learn to protect their energy. Not because they are cold, but because they are wise. Pain becomes self-respect. They stop chasing those who cannot meet them. They stop shrinking to fit. They stop explaining themselves to those who never intended to understand. This is why so many INFJs eventually step into roles like mentors, writers, counselors, strategists, creators, or quiet visionaries. They don't waste suffering. They convert it. And here's the powerful part. Wisdom compounds. Each lesson builds on the last. Each experience strengthens internal clarity. Each setback sharpens discernment. Over time, the INFJ becomes someone who cannot be easily shaken, not because they haven't suffered, but because they've metabolized suffering. So here's the truth. INFJs don't lose. If they win, they move forward with gratitude. They don't boast. They don't dominate. They don't inflate the victory. They absorb it. They appreciate it. They integrate it. And if they learn, they move forward with clarity. Clarity about people. Clarity about purpose. Clarity about themselves. Either way, they move forward. That's the key. Forward. Not stuck in resentment. Not trapped in victimhood. not frozen in regret. Forward. And maybe that's the deeper lesson, not just for INFJs, but for anyone seeking emotional resilience and personal growth. What if life isn't about avoiding loss? What if it's about extracting meaning? What if every setback is simply information? Information about alignment. Information about boundaries. Information about patterns. Information about growth edges. For the INFJ mindset, this isn't motivational fluff. It's survival strategy. It's how they've navigated a world that often feels loud, fast, and shallow. It's how they maintain depth without drowning. It's how they remain sensitive without becoming fragile. It's identity. It's power. Because the moment you treat every experience as refinement instead of ruin, you become untouchable in a very quiet way. If you're an INFJ watching this, pause for a moment. Let this sink in. Your sensitivity is not your weakness. It is your awareness. Your reflection is not overthinking. It is refinement. Your setbacks are not proof that you are behind. They are proof that you are evolving. You are not late. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are becoming. And becoming is never losing. It is unfolding. It is calibrating. It is aligning your outer world with your inner truth, one lesson at a time. So if this resonated with you, take a quiet moment. Reflect. Breathe. Trust that inner voice a little more. Protect your peace a little more intentionally. Choose alignment a little more courageously. Because you don't lose. You win. Or you learn. And both are progress. Until next time, stay thoughtful.